I want to open it up to questions. Most of you or all of you were there and you had a chance to view it, so no sense in me filtering it. Maybe I'll just open by saying, you know, we are so appreciative of the work that's been done by everybody, particularly the local election officials. It's been an unbelievable, you know, starting way before the primary, but all of this, and there's still more work to do, but also the Attorney General's office, the state canvassing board members. It has been a blizzard of paper. Then the campaigns, thousands of volunteers. So, you know, we're the people in the statute who have to produce and make this thing happen and do the recount and all that stuff. So we're very aware that we are partners with many people, and those people have been incredibly generous to us. So I just want to express my appreciation. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, your coverage has really helped the public take a hold of something that's pretty complicated but kind of simple at the core. And people stop me on the street who are, you know, getting your coverage every day and are incredibly informed and have strong opinions and different views. But the main thing that I hear is the message that I think we heard from all of the judges and justices today, which is the citizens might have a view about who they might want to win, but the citizens really have a view that they want the system to win, that they want the system to be fair and accurate. That's how they perceive it now, and they want to make sure that every eligible and legal and properly cast vote is counted. And I think you've heard that message from everybody on the canvassing board, and that was underlined today. So let me just move to questions, and when we can, we'll stop and dial in the folks that are going to dial in.
How confident are you that the counties will actually sort and count the wrongly rejected absentee ballots? I know that there's at least one county that said we're not going to do it until there's a quorum.
Yeah, you know, this will be up to the counties. I can't predict, but most of the counties I've talked to are very anxious to correct errors that they find. And so the fact that today the state canvassing board. Now the Christmas carols, however.
Yeah, those work good. They're more festive.
Welcome to WebEx. You will now be placed into the conference for the first one to conference. Please stand by.
What's that? Thank you. Thank you very much. The question was, you know, how confident are we that the counties will go ahead? Most of the counties I spoke to, and you know, that's not been a majority yet, but I'm doing them, you know, as fast as I can, have all expressed a great desire to find errors and to correct them. They all wanted State Canvassing Board to say this would not be futile, that the State Canvassing Board really wanted them to do it. And there is a general soberness to the fact that absentee ballots doubled this time from '06, and so that's a huge addition. That there was such a large number of rejected ballots, appropriately and inappropriately, allegedly, wrongly, whatever word you want to use, a huge number, and that so far, and we have a significant number of counties who've reported in and who provided their data. You know, I was first predicting 9 or 10%. It's certainly closer to 13%, and we are finding out a lot of things about our system. So in addition to fixing these obvious errors, I think the counties have expressed to me the desire to find ways to fix the system so that we just have fewer errors of all kinds and fewer rejections of all kinds, legal and not legal, in coming elections, because no one expects that the number of absentee ballots will go backwards, that they'll continue to increase.
Can you talk a little bit about your guiding philosophy or principles as you looked at these two issues today? I guess it was getting as many legal ballots as you could to be counted.
For me personally, the first one is we have a responsibility to move this process forward. We've put accuracy and transparency as our top priority, but we are cognizant of the tremendous amount of time that this is going to take under any circumstance, and that we're asking 2 Supreme Court justices and 2 judges, so that keeping a focus on accuracy and on transparency and with a respect to the time, the first matter of the missing ballots, there's been plenty of instances where this has happened before. There's been some procedures that have been developed. We were unanimous in our decision to move forward as we did, and that also allows the process to keep moving. So that was in addition to, making sure every person who legally voted, their vote is counted, and the more underlying principles of democracy. There is my responsibility to manage the process so that it results in an accurate result, that is done in a transparent way, but we are respectful of everybody's time in the process. On the second issue, our last meeting, I was really interested in the magnitude. The scale was at 50, 500, or 5,000. That's how I thought about it. Finding out that it was neither 50 nor 500, but not 5,000, but was somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000, is a sobering moment for me, not just for the local election officials, because it means we need to look at our systems. That means some legislation and rules, we're responsible for those, so we have a tremendous amount of work to do with less than a month to go before the legislature starts to meet. It also means that we have training and information sharing responsibilities that we have not been as successful as we need to be. So in addition to the sort of making sure every person's vote is cast, also for me is the principle that I want to learn from the mistakes or errors or shortcomings and translate that learning into change systems so that we don't continue that in the future.
Let me try it this way.
Yeah.
How confident, with these 2 rulings today, how confident are you now that the maximum number of legally cast ballots are going to be before you and will be counted appropriately?
Just based on the information we've gotten from the campaigns who have a high volume of information that they're sharing with us, these are the 2 most important things that have come before us. But I want to go back to what is our biggest job, because these 2 things are important, but our biggest job is the 4,000 and some challenge ballots. And so that, in fact, is the big gorilla in the room, so to speak, that getting through those so that we give proper attention to the challenges that have merit remains the largest challenge for the state canvassing board.
Looking ahead on that particular issue, a lot of members expressed some frustration today at the size of the count of rejected ballots. They may be frivolous. Do you think the campaigns are still playing games here?
No, I think the campaigns have been moving in a really positive direction, just not as fast as is needed. But there's a lot of time between now and the 16th for the campaigns to accelerate the rate of withdrawal of challenges, and they can continue to withdraw them during our review period. There is a complexity when a ballot challenge is withdrawn. We have to find it, identify it, find out where it was originally supposed to go. I mean, I don't want to minimize that there's a lot of work when a challenge is withdrawn.
What's manageable here, and you're expressing that you're not that frustrated.
It needs to get, so if a serious challenge that's not frivolous, that we put 2 to 3 minutes into reviewing that, that's an estimate that many people who are quite experienced at this have expressed to us, so let's just use that as a guide. In 4 days, we could look very carefully at 1,000 ballots. If there are more than 1,000 challenges that merit serious review, we'll take more days. We won't do work on religious holidays. But the justices and judges who've spoke have said more or less the same things, that they feel like that the challenges that really merit our time collectively are not in the 4,000 range and are probably below the 1,000, but this is for the candidates and their representatives to hear and take seriously. And there is a report that the Franken campaign is going to withdraw another 750 today. That would be great. And that would, that would help, I think, because they have been tending to match each other in the withdrawals.
Mr. Secretary, when do you need to get these amendment reports from the county? What's the drop dead deadline? I know you don't
The
want
drop
someone in
dead
there-
deadline is when the 5 of us sign the certificate.
So if you do something on Friday afternoon, that's okay?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's recommended. And I think, I have to say, talking to local elected officials who've just gone through the process and identified how many, they are sobered and they are anxious to correct those errors. And they would like to do that soon because it's on their minds. I mean, the local election officials, just their very being is about making sure that everyone who's eligible can vote, that every vote is cast and counted properly, and that the reports they file with us are correct. And so they've expressed a kind of a language of wanting to address obvious errors as quickly as possible. So I expect some of them would move very quickly, but the drop dead date, and the Chief Justice asked this again, and I think it's come up every time, it's when we say out loud, we believe this result is as accurate as we can humanly make it within the statutes that we are guided by.
What type of correspondence are you going to have with counties that so far have not gone through and sorted those?
Well, I think we'll have the exact same correspondence as everybody, which was, the original sort was to give us a sense of magnitude, right? That was the intent. Now, we will say the State Canvassing Board recommends, and we'll cite the, what the language was. And then we'll probably talk to them a little bit about what process might be the most convenient for them and for us, because if they're going to send us data, we have to have some way to kind of understand it. So, it'll be like a letter or a memo that'll go out,
Could you
something like that.
clarify what this resolution recommends that county canvassing board to do?
That they,
Sort.
under the Minnesota statute that authorizes county canvassing boards to open and then to correct their county canvass report based on obvious errors, that they do that. And that if they've made a correction and that has changed the county canvassing report, then it should come to the state canvassing board.
Won't campaigns have an opportunity to challenge the reading of those absentee ballots? And if so, are they doing a mini recount of these?
I haven't thought it through to that point, but the campaigns have been there every step of the way, but I'll need to talk to council and figure out how this will be done.
How do those amended totals reconcile with the recount numbers?
Well, so
Because
the
this is
information that would need to be provided to the state canvassing board for the state canvassing board to do a good job would have to give us the full structure of information, so that if there were changes to the original canvass report and the recount report, we would have to be able to see that. And one of the things that we deliberately did today was say we will cross that bridge when we get there. So when the state canvassing board receives an amended report from a county, hopefully we will have figured out the way that information should come to us to make that easy. And then the state canvassing board, we will discuss at that moment sort of the procedure by which the errors that have been identified and corrected are incorporated into what is going to be, at the end of the day, our state canvassing report. I mean, there's a way in which we're moving into the state canvassing part of this process, and there was a decision today to not talk about exactly how we would proceed until one of them showed up to the state canvassing board, and I would be reluctant to try to anticipate what we might decide at that time, other than people wanted to talk about it when it actually was in front of us.
Do you expect to be counting next Saturday, a week from this Saturday and Sunday, to avoid going into Christmas?
I expect to be done on the evening of the 19th.
You appeal to the campaigns, are you doing the campaigns to voluntarily withdraw those frivolous challenges to reduce this workload? You said you think you can get 1,000 of these done in 4 days.
We will continue to appeal to the campaigns. I feel like there's been language that some might call stronger than appeal stated by my colleagues. And I mean, we've had really positive direction. You know, we may be down to little more than half of where we started if the current rumor of additional Franken withdrawals is true. That would put us, I don't know, you know, at 35 or something. So we've had really positive direction. We just need greater acceleration or velocity in the right direction.
How long will you wait to receive the amended returns?
Just saying.
Is the canvassing board able to say that for certain types of challenges, we're gonna rule this way on identifying marks or something like that, and then a whole class of challenges goes away?
You know, as a state canvassing board, we've not discussed that yet, but we will have conversations in public as part of our meetings to help us kind of with the procedures. And we might be able to, in the course of that conversation, give the campaign some guidance that might accelerate their process.
Just to follow up on the procedure issue.
Yeah.
In terms of those challenge ballots, there's been some question on whether or not the board has to rule unanimously or if there's a vote. Do you know what you're doing on Tuesday in terms of the challenge?
I'm running the state canvassing board to have it completely rely on consensus. It has the authority to operate on the basis of majority.
There was discussion.
But it's your intention to, just following up, that you want to consensus, essentially consensus on each challenge ballot.
So
And if there
this is-
isn't, then you would
This has
vote?
been our goal is to make sure that we are really in agreement as we move forward. My impression from talking to others very experienced in this is that looking at the ballots is not rocket science and that there will be strong agreement in almost all cases. And when we stop to say, you know, this one's really worth discussing, so far my experience has been that our discussion can help us come to a consensus and that we will continue to operate in that way. I want to clarify that, you know, the rules, and in the old days there were different rules for county and state, and it was 4-1 a county in the 62 recounts. So there's been some confusion about this. It's a majority vote, but we are operating as much as we can to make sure that we are operating on a consensus basis.
So just to be clear, I want to make sure. So you want to get unanimous votes, but if there's really tricky ballots, you could say, okay.
Yes, and ballots that we don't agree, there is the we can't agree pound, right? So you know, you can clearly tell the intent, or you cannot clearly tell the intent. So as we go into it, we will be discussing this in front of everyone together because it's an open meeting kind of an issue. Yeah.
Explain why 2 weeks ago, whenever the last board meeting was, we were unanimous in saying if it wasn't counted, it can't be recounted. Sort these for future contests. And today, saying, no, we should, and you're all unanimous
Yeah.
again,
Well,
saying we should recount.
The resolution in the previous meeting was about the recount. The recount is a phase of our work that is really different than the canvass, which is what we are entering now. And so the very helpful opinion from the Attorney General has helped to sort of sort those things out. There's laws and statutes that relate to recount, and there are laws and statute and judicial opinions that relate to the canvass. And so we are in the canvass phase, and so under that, I think you heard everyone having the same kind of view about the canvass phase. You know, let's find this out.
Can you
Yeah.
review the actions of the board today?
Yeah. Those of you who are watching it, keep an eye on me. So the board today first got a report from the number of challenges that were still left, and we heard that we've seen a reduction in the challenges, but we still have a very large number of challenges, and the board expressed a strong sentiment that they be continue to be reduced down to those that really merit our time. The second thing is we discussed one part of the procedure next for our upcoming meeting about the challenges, which is that we will be separating the challenge ballots that have been withdrawn out under a very careful and public process so that we are presenting to the judges and justices and the state canvassing board just those ballots that have been challenged. Then we moved to the question of the lost ballots from Minneapolis, and we agreed unanimously that the machine total from that night is the second best and acceptable number, and so that they can complete and submit their report. And then we discuss the information that we've gotten from the counties and cities who've sorted their allegedly wrongly rejected absentee ballots. We discovered that that was somewhere in the 13% range, which implies statewide we're probably, about 1,500. And that in that case, those are a significant number of obvious errors, and that we recommend that the counties use their statutory authority to reopen their canvasses, to correct those obvious errors, and then to submit to the State Canvassing Board their corrections so that we can have a correct and accurate look at all of the county numbers based on the correction of those errors that were identified. And then we had a few final comments reminding the campaigns that we have a target of December 16th through 19th, that we want to concentrate our time on challenges of merit and urging them to continue to withdraw frivolous challenges so that we are down to a number of ballots that are really appropriate for the time of everyone on the canvas board to look at.
Can you provide some context for how up in the air this is? I'm sure people come out and say, who's going to win? And that's the overriding interest here. How up in the air is it?
The only context I can provide is what I've said from the first night, which is that absolutely no one can tell or predict who will have the most votes from Minnesota voters from November 4th until this process is completed. There are at least 4,000, hopefully maybe a few less, but about 4,000 challenged ballots. We have some errors that have appeared to me, allegedly wrongly rejected absentee ballots that will, some portion of them be reviewed. And so it has been true from the first night, when it was clear that it was within the 0.5%, that it would not be possible to say which candidate got the most votes from Minnesota voters until the process was completely done.
So is the,
Attorney, you repeatedly said that you wanted to make sure that when you finish this canvas, the canvas works done, that you have the best total and you look at them beyond. If local county officials don't supply the rejected absentee ballots, decide not to sort them, are you still confident that that's the case?
Well, I have such confidence in the local election officials. I'm not kind of worried about that process. It was pointed out in the Attorney General's memo that there are a number of ways that number can be determined. Both campaigns can say, we agree and this should be done. A local person can go to district court, and so, but there have been such incredible cooperation. I think there's been a little confusion between counties who've said, I want to hear from the State Canvassing Board that this is going to matter before I do this work, and the counties who've, gone ahead and done it partly to find out for themselves, how did we do? I believe that when they all hear that the State Canvassing Board is recommending this, and that the message that is, we want to hear because we want to be as accurate as we can be, that we'll have excellent cooperation. This is asking a lot. It's not just more work, but it's also, really looking at errors that were made. And there's always the crisis and opportunity part of this kind of thing. And at first, it's hard to say, we made a lot of errors. But then once you say it, you say, and we can fix these. These are errors that can be fixed thanks to the wisdom of the people who wrote Minnesota statutes covering election law. Absentee ballots are confusing and more complicated. We had twice as many this time as in '06. It's not unusual that more errors occurred, and thankfully we have a very simple procedure for correcting those errors, and I think the counties share my appreciation for the fact that we have a way to fix the problems that we have identified.
is the canvassing board going to end up with the numbers from the recount, the amended local canvas numbers, and then the challenged ballot outcome, and you're gonna have to
Yeah, we haven't
reconcile
talked
those?
about how we'll proceed, but there will be, we will need to be very careful in how we keep track of everything. And the withdrawal of challenged ballots is right now one of the major things that we have to focus on, because we have to make sure that we are only looking at truly the challenged ballots that have not been withdrawn, but we also have to insert properly the original decision of the election judge, the table official, into the count that we have going forward from the recount. And so to that list that you described of things we'll have to consider, we'll have to also have a way to make sure that when a ballot challenge has been withdrawn, that that ballot has been accurately assigned to the right column.
So when you're done reviewing the challenges, then you're gonna end up with a recount number that includes the outcome of the ballot challenge review, and then separately.
Today, there was a strong reluctance to state how we were going to do this exactly, and I will have to wait till we convene as a state canvassing board to, be able to lay out exactly what the procedure will be. But I heard from my colleagues a strong reluctance to say now how we will do this, but obviously we will need to talk about this as we convene on the 16th.
There was discussion today of election contests on both of these issues. Do you have any doubt at this point that this race is going to end up in court?
So aspects of this race, an aspect of this canvass process, an aspect of the recount have been to court, and, little things have happened. And I think that there are things that need attention that is not appropriate for a state canvassing board. But I have a more kind of fundamental kind of question, which is I want us to do such a good job in the canvass process that nobody would reject the work of the canvassing board and the statement of who Minnesotans chose to be their senator. There may be small things that need to be decided on the margin, but I want it to get it down to the most accurate number we can. I actually think that's part of the wisdom or genius of this approach. And I've heard people say, oh, these things should just go to courts, and there shouldn't be this state canvassing board or something like that. Well, first thing, it's in the Constitution, but more importantly, having the cooperation of local, trained, professional election officials and election judges to conduct the bulk of the work of this process, so that what goes to court for evidence and inquiry and stuff is limited to that which should appropriately go to court. That's a great system. And I'm trying to make sure that the real benefits of that system get magnified, so that whatever does need to go to court is narrowed down to things that are really appropriate and that people really trust our outcome.
And as a follow-up, how confident are you? You said that the 19th is sort of your self-imposed deadline to finish. How confident are you that Minnesota will know its next senator by the dusk at the 19th?
I believe that Minnesotans will know how Minnesotans voted on November 4th on the 19th. I've also said that we will continue working till we are done, and that we won't work on religious holidays. So I think people are aware that there may be loose ends or something to that effect. But my goal is being able to say, how did Minnesotans vote? And the end of the day of the 19th, I think, is a reasonable target.
Will you extend beyond the 19th if it's clear that there are
sure.
counties with amended returns that haven't
Yeah,
come in yet?
we've always said we will put the emphasis on accuracy and transparency, and but we're mindful of time. And the citizens and the judges and justices, everybody has other things, but accuracy, transparency, and then, being mindful of time. You had a question?
I'm going back to my earlier question. It wasn't, at the last meeting, wasn't the unanimous feeling that this issue of rejected absentee ballots had to go to the judge, had to go to the court?
Not in my recollection.
No.
The question, the resolution was on a specific question about the recount, and we are conducting a canvass, so these are sort of different things. But I think today, Justice Magnuson pointed out the different ways that the courts can also be part of this larger process. But I think everyone, and we voted unanimously, in the direction of making sure that people's votes were properly counted in this process. And, for the 5 of us, the issue is signing a sheet of paper that says, to the best of our ability, this is the accurate count of Minnesota's eligible and legal voters who met all the proper laws and guidelines on November 4th. So whatever we're doing, we're aiming at making sure that when we sign that sheet of paper, we feel really strongly. It's reputations, but it's also just a matter of sort of justice that when we sign that we've done the best that we can. And yeah, go ahead.
You're just getting ready for next week. You get good direction from state law on determining the intent of the voters.
Yeah, pretty good.
Can you talk about what that'll mean practically as you pick up a ballot and look at it as an individual?
I feel comfortable talking about for me as an individual, but I want to repeat that in the meeting today, it has been fairly clear that, folks want to talk about these things in public as a whole if they're going to affect the whole board. But I've been not just reading the current statute, but I've gone back and read how that statute was changed after the 62 recount, and I've gone back and read the origins of that statute, which were actually quite similar back in the 1890s, to just give me a sense of what had been the main controversies and what had been simple. And I noted that in the 62 recount, one of the big issues in the beginning was the question of markings that had sort of, the challenge was based on the question of that it was an intent to identify the ballot with a person. And the judges, at various times throughout the process, on the basis of some other recounts and on that one, said, listen, there has to be a voter intent to try to identify the ballot, and that changed dramatically how they approached the 62 recount. And I note that a tremendous number of the challenges this time have to do with this ballot marking for identity, and a lot of the withdrawn ballots have been in that area. So I'm thinking that trying to get a kind of a pattern established about what kind of challenges that are under the heading of identity might we be able to move together. For example, does the inclusion of Mickey Mouse or a fictitious character's name as a write-in candidate meet the level of the law in terms of trying to identify a ballot or put a marking? And if we can find some of those things that give us guidance as to how we're all thinking, then we could move a group of those together and kind of move them out. So I've been focused on addressing the issues of this week and on trying to get good cooperation from the candidates to get the number down. And now I, of course, have to turn my attention to how to best manage the process next week. And I've been reading, but now I have to start, trying to lay out some procedures that then we all would talk about first thing on the 16th.
Specifically on the withdrawn ballots,
Mm-hmm.
how are you processing those, and what's their status right now?
So today we passed a resolution unanimously to physically remove the withdrawn ballots originals, so that we are having essentially 2 packets, still or currently challenged and then withdrawn, so that we're only dealing with, because pulling them out is kind of a hassle. So that's one thing. The second thing is our elections division has created a number of spreadsheets that are specifically designed to take the information given to us by the campaigns, which tells us the ones that they are withdrawing, making sure that they in fact were originally challenged, because there's typos. The campaigns even have typos. Making sure that what they said was the sort of, the original intention, but anyhow, going in ourselves and then making that change and getting it double and triple checked, so that as we begin to adjust the number on the recount, that it accurately reflects that a withdrawn challenge has to also then be assigned to a either a candidate Coleman, candidate Franken, or other pile, and it has to be done with great care. I also suspect and assume that the campaigns will be watching this like a hawk, and I think that's good. This is quite complicated to back out many thousands of challenge ballots and to do it properly, and we're doing it well.
And how far along have you got this? Are they looking over your shoulder while you're doing it?
I don't know because I'm not doing this, but they're sending us spreadsheets, and we're working off the spreadsheets. And so occasionally I will see emails saying in precinct so-and-so, in township so-and-so, in this county, this was written as a 6 and it should have been a 7 or something, you know. So my assumption is that everybody's watching this very closely. And I think that the campaigns have really excellent data, and that this is a benefit to us because it allows our data to be also double-checked and triple-checked internally, and that there are external, people watching it as well.
And how far along have you gotten in that process in terms of adding those votes back in?
I don't think Gary, just,
Right. I'll say that, so we've created our spreadsheet that has the 6,600 lines on it, one for every ballot. We've gone through and looked at and documented who the recount official have initially determined it for, and which candidate made the challenge. We just started yesterday afternoon, starting to go into that Excel spreadsheet and mark which ones of those have been withdrawn. So we're still in the middle of just doing the withdrawals of the withdrawals that they've given us. We haven't assigned any votes back to anybody yet at this point.
And when do you think we'll be done with the assigning of the votes?
Well, right, so we'll be working through the weekend and getting that, hopefully on Monday we'll have that set so that on Tuesday we can go to the canvas board and give them a report of what's been withdrawn and how they've been assigned.
So before that point, we wouldn't see them on the recount votes?
No, I don't think anything would be done until the canvas board would accept the withdrawals and how they've been assigned.
Two more questions.
Just for clarification on Minneapolis, Ward 3, Precinct 1. So essentially, for the purposes of the recount, they're accepting the original total from the machine rather than any recount for the...
Correct.
And were you aware, was it a concern that on both of these issues, the absentee ballots and the 133 votes, the canvassing board today sided with the Franklin articles?
oh, my only consideration is, does the canvassing board move together in consensus? That was really important. I've said it from the beginning. I've not been happy with how these issues have been somewhat presented in a kind of a partisan way, but in any case, this is part of how the process, the American political process works. The critical thing in my mind was that we had a public discussion with very, very careful, the top jurists in the state. We had excellent information. They had done their homework. You could see they brought law books and law reviews. People had done really careful work. So that's what really matters to me, that the work was careful. And then, of course, that we were able to move on a consensus basis. Those are the things that were the most important to me, and they remain the most important to me. Any other questions? I'll be here. Thank you very much.
Is there anybody on the line that's
Anybody on the line with a question? Sorry, I've been ignoring you. Good. That's a good idea.